Cris Dush is State House Representative for the 66th District, having been elected in 2014. During the 2019-20 session, Cris was appointed to serve on the Environmental Resources and Energy, Labor and Industry, State Government and Urban Affairs Committees of the State House. A native of Brookville in Jefferson County, Cris is running to represent the State Senate's 25th District. A United States Air Force veteran, Cris also was a non-commissioned officer in the Pennsylvania Air National Guard. He lives in Pine Creek Township, Jefferson County, with his wife, Tracy. The 25th District has a population of just under 240,000 people and encompasses all of Clinton, Elk, Jefferson, McKean, Potter, and Tioga counties and part of Clearfield County. Today's interview is being conducted by another Cris Morelli, a reporter at the Express Community newspaper. Cris?
Thanks for joining us, Cris. We appreciate your time during this busy season. Here are our questions. We'll start with local issues.
Sure.
One of the leading local issues today is the integration of Lock Haven University with Bloomsburg and Mansfield universities that could result in an upward of 100 faculty and staff reductions, along with program reductions. Have you taken a position on the integration, and what are your views on the issue?
Well, the university systems have been struggling for a while because of declining enrollments. And one of the things, the new chancellor, I also in my House district have the Indiana University of Pennsylvania, specifically their Punxsutawney campus, but the main campus is only a couple miles outside of my district. We've been following that very closely, as well as Clarion. The chancellor that we have realizes the significance of the financial difficulties that are being posed by the declining enrollments and that sort of thing, as well as the continuing and growing pension liabilities. So he's taken a pretty proactive stance on trying to mitigate as much of the damage as possible, some of the mergers, that sort of thing. The last information that I received, he's looking at about 47 faculty here and then 47 staff for Lock Haven. Now, with that, my understanding, he's trying to do the bulk of that through attrition. We don't want to lose any jobs if it's at all possible, but we also have to face the fiscal realities of the situation. If we don't have the students, we can't have teachers and teaching empty classrooms. So he's done a very good job of communicating with faculty and staff. I was at IUP, and I had a meeting with the president and the chancellor. It's been about 6 months ago, well, probably longer than that. But before that, he was having a meeting with the faculty and staff, and I was expecting to see some blowback for him at that. But he does a good job of laying out what actually is going on, and the faculty, they realize, because they're seeing the declining enrollments in their classrooms, that sort of thing. So he's doing the best that he can to make sure that the pain is as less painful as possible.
Along those same lines, do you support more funding for Lock Haven University, which saw increased enrollment this fall, and our state-run schools in general?
Well, Lock Haven and IUP are a little bit, IUP even more significantly, they've had some increases, but then you have Mansfield and some of these others that are really hurting. So, and Mansfield's in the 25th district as well, so I have to take a look at all of it. And what he's trying to do is to make sure that we get some balance there and try and maintain the programs and in the communities where we can. Cheney University is another one that's even in a worse situation right now than Mansfield. So they're looking at doing some consolidation work there. As far as putting extra money in there, the chancellor, as well as our House member who's on the PASHE board, Brad Roy, have been doing an excellent job of trying to find ways to mitigate the loss. If we're not, I will responsibly fund things that need to be funded, But we have to take every factor into consideration whenever we're making those decisions.
Have you talked to any Lock Haven University officials to ask what the college needs are?
I haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. But again, just like with President Driscoll down at IUP, I fully intend to be involved with the universities, both at Mansfield and Lock Haven. I will still have IUP's Punxsutawney campus, so I'm basically having 3 different universities within the senatorial district that I'm going to have significant interaction with, and I will maintain that.
On the topic of state grants, Cris, do you support state grants to organizations, municipalities, and institutions for betterment projects as a means of providing taxpayers with a return on their state tax dollars?
Oh, absolutely. I'm actively involved with our local communities. We actually won a governor's award. I brought all the municipal governments together when I first got into office, and we sat down with Penvest, Co-Stars, the Governor's Action Team, and others, and started working together with well, first of all, it has helped establish some relationships with between the boroughs and the county, and the 2 counties and the townships that kind of had been frayed over the years, but then it also put them in touch with people from those different agencies that are able to help. The borough of Sykesville wanted a water supply system or needed to fix their water supply system. And typically when you apply for grants, you usually have to apply 5 or 6 times often for municipal governments. They were bringing water from Du Bois City through Sandy Township, Brady Township in Clearfield County, then Henderson Township and into Sykesville. And one of the things after having that meeting, I encouraged the Sykesville Borough or the municipal authority to put fire hydrants the whole length of that. And when they put that on the grant application, now they were benefiting 5 municipal governments in 2 different counties. That immediately put them at the top of the list. They got the grant offer the first time out. And then our people around here are they're so used to doing so much with so little for so long, they can practically do anything with nothing. They came in so far under budget that one of the major manufacturers in the area was looking to expand their footprint. It went over it would have taken it over an existing water line. Well, you can't have a water main running underneath a building. We got together and applied for and got authorization for them to use the additional money or the money that was left over to put in a new water main around that building. So it improved the infrastructure there that they were looking at something a little bit further down the road. But having those interactions and learning to develop that team concept with everything, got the grant done earlier, had the money left over for another project, and we won a governor's award for that. So,
okay. Clinton County is seeing stagnant and in some cases decreasing population. What would you do to attract more people here, especially now amid this work from home trend?
Well, there are a couple factors. The work from home trend is something that's starting to impact the local areas. Du Bois, again, the Treasure Lake area just outside in Sandy Township. It's a gated community. Typically they have 120 properties on the market at any given time. It's down to 20. And it's because people are leaving the cities and coming out here because they feel safe. We're going to have to make sure that we've got the rural broadband for them in order that they can work from home. But we also have to do something to help corporations. Pennsylvania's got the worst corporate taxing policy in the country, and money walks. As the booms have started to come, we are the most lagging state, in many sectors, and it's largely because of the taxation. When President Trump made the tax situation more favorable for the United States, we saw all these businesses coming back from other countries. Pennsylvania didn't benefit on that to the extent of other states. I was down in Nashville, and they said they're going to change the name of the state bird to the crane for all the construction cranes going on down there. They have a very favorable tax base. I have a nephew that's working down there, and for Macy's, for a distribution center. And it's, if we make it attractive to Pennsylvania attractive again to business, we will get the people back. When I got out of the military in 1990, there was no work back in Brookville. I ended up working down in the Philadelphia and Baltimore areas for about 5 years before finally being able to get back home. But that was with a state job. I'd rather have been working for the private sector and doing something there, but there's not a state in the United States that doesn't have a Steelers bar in it. And the reason is it's our working class people that are keeping those businesses open in other states. I want them back. So we need to make it attractive again for business.
Okay. The most compelling attributes of our area is the wealth of natural resources and beauty. What would you do to encourage economic growth while protecting the environment for future generations?
Well, we are doing an excellent job of protecting our environment around the area. We went through a period when the explosive growth in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and even like New York City, we were supplying all the coal, we were supplying the clay that made the bricks, the Somerville plant for Hanley and Bird, for their brick manufacturing. It was all down in the Lincoln Tunnel, and so many of the buildings downtown Manhattan. But people weren't as careful with our environment back then. But we've had people, the Cook family, which Cook Forest is named after, it's got the largest old growth forest east of the Mississippi. We have conservationists. There's a difference between conservationists and environmentalists. And the conservationists are aware of, you strike a balance between what man's doing and what nature does. And our conservationists are the ones who are preserving wetlands, and they're preserving places like Pheasants Forever, Trout Unlimited. Those guys are conservationists. They like to see the streams restored. They've done some remarkable things with streams that were running red whenever I was growing up, and they've restored them. And that's been our local people. So we've got the energy underneath our feet to help power America, and we've proven that we can do that responsibly. We've got wells all over the place, and in fact, DEP has a bunch of abandoned or orphaned wells. They haven't been plugging. I think they've plugged maybe 4 or 5, and yet we've got some small business owners that they see every molecule of natural gas that gets out of the ground that's not going to a burner tip as lost revenue. So they're going around and plugging wells, those orphan wells, on their own, at their own dime, even on properties where they don't have the gas rights. It's very nice to see what's going on, especially up in McKean County, Tioga County, well, Potter County, McKean, and Warren counties right now, as well as Forest and Elk. They're plugging wells left and right, and they're doing it on their own dime. It's expensive, but they're trying to do it to help the environment.
Okay. In the age of Amazon, not only is Main Street suffering throughout our rural towns, but now too our malls are closing. As local commerce struggles, what steps would you take to bring life back to our empty storefronts?
We're going to have manufacturing back. And if we've got to have other good high-paying jobs that are in the area. People want to shop locally, and the community development organizations, the economic development, whichever label they call it from whatever county, as well as the local ones. I'm willing to partner with the chambers on whatever they want to do. Up in McKean County, both Bradford and Kane. Kane Borough, they call their center borough, uptown rather than downtown. But they're developing a business for the Pennsylvania Great Outdoors, a storefront that has, it's right in the middle of downtown. They're redoing the whole facility in a way that is beyond LEED certification. It is remarkable. When it's finished, it's going to be a national centerpiece. They're doing a lot of restoration in the community. Businesses are coming back. Bradford is doing the same thing. They're very focused on getting their downtowns open, and they're filling storefronts rather than having them abandoned. I want to take what they're doing and try and bring it out to the rest of the 25th district.
What other local issues are near and dear to you?
Families, we've got to do what we can to make sure that families stay connected, and where possible, stay here. You know, it's like me. We have so many people go out. Well, there's nothing here, and you go out, and I've been from England to Iraq to Korea. 4.5 years over in England. We're blessed, and I think when people go away, they learn how blessed we are with the natural beauty. There's so much to do here. It's just that you take it for granted until you leave. So doing what we can to keep families intact and keep them here, as well as restore businesses to bring people back home and allow them to come home and have a livable income. That is key to me. Like I said, I hate seeing all our working class people getting out there in other areas of the country when we could be back home here. I had so many of my classmates that would have loved to have come back home, except for the lack of jobs. So that, for me, that's key.
We'll switch gears to some COVID-related questions.
Sure.
Do you practice safety protocols to protect others and yourself from COVID?
Yeah, look, when I spent 24 years in the military, and we practice nuclear, biological, and chemical attacks. The biological attacks, the mask that we had to breathe through, you literally had to suck to get the air in. It filtered out. So these things go counter to everything that we've been trained to do. Now, when I'm around somebody that I know is immune compromised or something like that, yeah, and I don't use these reusable ones. I've got a pack of disposable masks there. You know, we protect the people who are vulnerable, and it's responsible to do that, but you don't quarantine the healthy. When we see that it's less than, significantly less than 1% fatality rate, except for when you get into congregate settings, there's a significant problem with shutting down an entire economy. I don't blame the governor for initially shutting things down to put a slowdown on it till we were in the place to actively respond. But you have to admit, I mean, he and 5 other governors made some significant mistakes when they ordered people who were COVID positive into the nursing homes. 68% of Pennsylvania's deaths have occurred in nursing homes where those people were brought in. It's the folks who were outside that were positive brought into the facilities. If you, out of those 5 states, if you eliminate those 5 states, the rest of the country is below the worldwide national average for mortality rate. And there's a significant difference too. The administration and several other governors are constantly reporting the case rate. They're not reporting the morbidity rate. And that needs to be the key focus. You know, this is a virus. Nobody's going to escape it. You're going to be exposed to it no matter what at some point. So we do what we can to mitigate the effects and make sure that the proper prophylactics are there for the people who are the most vulnerable, but also we want to make sure that we've got an economy that can sustain the healthcare system, because without that, we can't pay for healthcare to take care of the sick. So you have to strike a good balance.
Cris, you voted to impeach Governor Wolf due to his restrictions meant to stop the spread of COVID. Can you explain your disagreements with the governor?
Article 1, Section 1 of the Pennsylvania Constitution specifically states that the people have the right not just to life, but to acquire property. Now, for a very brief time, like I said, we had a serious situation we had to take a look at. However, with the arbitrary shutdowns, the arbitrary waiver systems, those things, and when we got him into court, his people, they admitted they had no scientists on the team. They had no set standard on what was a life-sustaining business. There was nothing written down. They weren't even taking notes. They were flying by the seat of their pants, and still are to the extent that I know. So there was no science involved in it at all. And yet he's taking away the Article 1, Section 1 right of the people to acquire property. If you're not able to earn a paycheck, you can't acquire property. If you are not able to operate your business, you're not able to acquire property. Article 1, Section 25 states, it's the exclamation point to the Pennsylvania Bill of Rights. It states that these powers that we are delegating, we meaning the people, are delegating to the government, whether it's judicial, executive, or the legislative. Those things that are in Article 1 are accepted out of the general powers of the government, and they shall forever remain inviolate. Meaning there is no question, the rights are what they are, and they're very specific and they're very plain language. So he doesn't have the right to continue to deprive people of the right to earn a living. Yes, tell us how to go about making sure that people are safe, and expect people to do it. And if you've got serious violations, by all means, go after the people who are putting people at risk. But you don't have the right to shut people down.
Do you support mail-in ballots for those who fear COVID, and what are your thoughts on current laws and rulings allowing mail-in ballots?
Well, again, the judicial branch overstepped their authority. They're writing law. I had the impeachment resolutions whenever they wrote the new congressional maps, and they're doing it again now by saying that there's an extra 3 days. Look, the act of applying force to compel the people to do something or not to do something is strictly a legislative power. And that's because we are subjected to the removal from office from our constituents every 2 years. And it's meant that we should get together. It's why we have so many legislators, is that we get together and we're bringing the perspective of people from around the Commonwealth. I was sitting in Baghdad in 2009 when people were coming back from Iran, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt into Iraq to vote. They were coming by donkey and camel, and they were traveling through a war-torn nation in order to dip their thumb in that ink and vote. I think we have a responsibility here in America to vote in person when possible. And now we do have people who, like corrections officers, state police, and others who get, and National Guard, military, who, due to their jobs, have to be gone and will be gone, but they should still not be disenfranchised from their right to vote. So the absentee ballot system, I think, works for that. The COVID situation right now for the mail-in ballot, I think there is an element of fear out there and concern. Where possible, I think people should still show up in person, but when it comes to those who have compromised immune systems and that sort of thing, they should be able to take advantage of it, but we're giving plenty of lead time. The counties are getting the ballots out. I don't think we need to go 3 days beyond the election day in order to have the ballots brought in.
Pennsylvania, like most states, is facing a massive budget deficit due to the economic and job downturn caused by COVID. How will or would you approach voting on new or increased funding streams to balance the budget as required in Pennsylvania?
Well, in 2017, I was part of the Common Sense Caucus, and still am, but we uncovered $12.6 billion in hidden special funds, 118 hidden special funds that had $12.6 billion. It's funny, people were saying that money's not there, the money's not there, but we proved that it was. And now it's turning out that it's probably going to save us a lot of pain. We initially thought there was going to be about $5 billion in shortfall on the revenue. It's now looking more like 3.6. We're looking at probably $2 billion out of those special funds. We're going to try and spread that out across several. There's some that can afford it a little bit more than others. And we're going to hear some screaming about that. But you know what? We've got to do what we've got to do. Now, there's a possibility of $1 billion from the CARES Act going through the counties to take care of the county expenses. We're working through that and trying to come up with that. So there's about another $600 million we haven't quite figured out yet. But as far as increasing taxes or something like that, if we increase, it's going to further exacerbate the problem Pennsylvania has with people fleeing the state. I want them back. And if we reduce our corporate net income, there's a thing called the Laffer curve. Art Laffer, he came up with it, but it's an old concept that you strike a balance on that curve on the increased revenues versus taxation. We are at the point we're so heavily taxed that the revenues are down. We start releasing some of that and backing off on it and making it favorable for industry to return to Pennsylvania. We'll get to the increased revenues. But that's more of a long-term kind of thing. In the short term, we may have to go another 600 after the special funds, but right now, and it's both parties from what I've been able to determine so far, is that with the notable exception of the governor and the lieutenant governor who want to use marijuana or severance tax to increase taxes, there's not an appetite for increasing taxes because they're already, we're destroying restaurants, we're destroying a lot of local small businesses at the expense. The Walton family has increased their net worth $1 billion in the first 6 weeks of the COVID situation, and that's been at the expense of our small businesses. When our governor and several others shut down the small businesses, it had a devastating impact, and it's been on their backs. I want to get it back to where small businesses, from the storefronts down on Main Street to the smaller manufacturers, mid-sized manufacturers, can return to Pennsylvania and have a place to thrive.
In closing, why should people vote for you?
Well, for 6 years, I've been in the State House. I've been challenged a number of times, and I'm usually 80%, which means both Democrats, and I get about half of the Democrats in my House district. And it's because I listen. And it's taking the time to listen to my schools, my townships, my boroughs, just the people in general, and the impacts that the state and federal government have on their lives and livelihoods. In turn, after listening to them, I become their voice in Harrisburg. And I think that's why, like I said, I've continually won 80% of the vote back home. It's why people stood for me when a lot of false ads came out here during the primary election. They spent almost $1 million against me. I had a lot of people coming out and hitting the doors for me from my own district, from the district attorney to just some ladies from several different churches. So that's basically the reason. If I'm going to be out here just like I have been, my House district's 900 square miles, the Senate district's 5,000. I won't have quite with 240,000 people versus 64,000. I can't spend as much time with as many people in a given geographic area, but spread out over the whole district. I will be out and about through all 8 counties, and I will be listening. And I know there are marked differences between Lock Haven and Bradford, Mansfield and Punxsutawney. So I'm out, I've been spending time with community leaders, learning those differences, and I plan on holding, similar to what I described earlier at the county level, bringing all the municipal governments together. I'm going to be doing the same thing with schools and that sort of thing. I need to get to know more about what's going on throughout the district. I will learn that stuff, and I will be an effective voice for you down in Harrisburg.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.